Hey everyone! Today we're talking about one of the biggest and most important battles in early Islamic history, the Battle of Yarmouk. This wasn't just a small fight. It was a huge showdown between two superpowers at the time, and it happened in the dry desert land between what is now Syria and Jordan. In early 600s, the Byzantine Empire was falling apart. A man named Heraclius became emperor in 610, after kicking out the old ruler Phocas. At the same time, the Persian Empire was attacking and taking over places like Mesopotamia and Syria. They even moved into parts of today's Turkey. Heraclius tried to fight back, but lost badly in 613 when he tried to take Syria again. The Persians didn't stop. They kept going and took over Palestine and Egypt too. But Heraclius didn't give up. Over the next few years, he rebuilt his army. By 622, he fought back and beat the Persians in Armenia and the Caucasus. In 627, he won a big battle in Mesopotamia called the Battle of Nineveh. That loss was too much for the Persian king, Khosrow II. His own son, Khalid II, took over and gave back all the land they had taken. Heraclius even returned a Christian relic called the True Cross to Jerusalem in a big celebration in 629. While all of that was happening in the north, something big was also happening in Arabia. The Prophet Muhammad had been spreading the message of Islam, and by 630, most of the Arabian Peninsula had joined him. When he passed away in 632, his close friend Abu Bakr became the new leader, or caliph. But then, some tribes tried to break away. Abu Bakr fought to bring them back in what were called the Ridda Wars. By 633, the Muslim community was united again, and Abu Bakr started spreading Islam beyond Arabia. He sent his best general, Khalid ibn al-Walid, to Iraq. Khalid quickly won battles there and beat the Persian army. Seeing this success, Abu Bakr then sent Muslim armies into Syria. Instead of rushing into big battles, they used smart tactics and picked off smaller targets first. Soon they realized their forces were too spread out. So Abu Bakr called Khalid from Iraq to help. With fresh troops and Khalid's leadership, the Muslims won a big battle at Ajnadain in July, took Damascus in September, and beat the last big Byzantine army in Palestine at the Battle of Fall. Abu Bakr died in 634, and Umar became the new caliph. Even though Khalid had done well, Umar made Abu Ubaidah the new commander. But the Muslim army kept moving forward, taking over cities like Tiberias, Baalbek, and Emesa by early 636. Now the Byzantines were really worried. Heraclius, watching from the city of Antioch, decided to act fast. He teamed up with the Persian Emperor Yazdegerd III, and even married his daughter, or maybe his granddaughter, to build a strong alliance. They planned to attack the Muslims from two sides, Persians from the east, and Byzantines from the west. But the Persian army wasn't strong enough, so Heraclius had to go it alone. By May 636, Heraclius had gathered a massive army near Antioch. It included Slavs, Franks, Armenians, Christian Arabs, and others. The army was split into 5 parts. The main commander was Vahan, an Armenian general. Other important leaders included the Slavic prince Buxanator, Jabala from the Ghassanid Arabs, and 2 more named Gregory and Derjan. Heraclius stayed back in Antioch to give commands. The Muslim forces were spread out too. Amr was in Palestine, Shurabil was in Jordan, Yazid was near Damascus, and Abu Ubaidah and Khalid were in Emesa. Heraclius wanted to beat them one by one before they could join up. He even sent his son Constantine III to keep Yazid busy. Heraclius had a big plan. Jabala would block the main Muslim army at Emesa. Derjan would attack from the west. Gregory from the northeast. Quanatir would try to take Damascus, and Vahan would jump in where needed. But this plan only worked if the Muslim forces stayed apart. Luckily for the Muslims, they found out about the plan by talking to captured Byzantine soldiers. Khalid told Abu Ubaidah that they needed to unite fast. They met up at a place called Jabiyah. which had flat land great for cavalry and was easy to defend. They also made friends with local people by giving back their taxes. But they couldn't stay in Jabiya for long. Some Arab tribes who sided with the Byzantines started attacking, and the Byzantine army in Caesarea was also a threat. So Khalid suggested moving again, this time near the Yarmouk River. It was a smart choice. There was a lava plain on one side and deep valleys on the other, so it was hard for enemies to sneak in from different directions. This is where the famous Battle of Yarmouk took place. The battlefield was southeast of the Golan Heights, close to the border between today's Jordan and Syria. One side had a deep valley with cliffs up to 200 meters high. On the other side were hills and a Roman bridge called Ain Dakar, the only real crossing point. There was also a hill called Tel al-Jumah that gave the Muslims a clear view of the area. The open ground was great for cavalry, and Khalid's fighters were very skilled on horseback. And now, when it comes to how big these armies were, the numbers are kind of all over the place. Some early sources say the Muslims had around 36,000 to 40,000 soldiers, and the Byzantines had 60,000 to 70,000. But that's probably a stretch. The Byzantine Empire was already tired and worn out at that point. So today's historians think the real numbers were smaller, maybe 15,000 to 40,000 for the Byzantines, and something similar for the Muslims. Either way, most agree the Byzantines had more troops, maybe even twice as many. Before the fighting started, Abu Ubaidah passed command of the Muslim army to Khalid ibn al-Walid. Khalid didn't waste time. He broke the army into 36 infantry units and 4 cavalry groups. His special cavalry team, called the Mobile Guard, stayed back and was ready to jump in wherever needed. The soldiers were lined up in a tight formation called the Tabiyya. The entire army stretched 12 kilometers wide, facing west. The left side of their line sat near the Yarmouk River, and the right stretched toward the Jabiya road. To match the Byzantines' 13-kilometer wide formation, Khalid left spaces between groups. The center was led by Abu Ubaidah and Shurabil. Yazid commanded the left wing, and Amr ibn al-As led the right. Each part had cavalry in reserve, just in case they were pushed back. Khalid himself stayed behind the center with the Mobile Guard, ready to step in when things got serious. If he couldn't, his right-hand man Darar ibn al-Aswar would take over. Khalid also sent scouts to keep an eye on the Byzantine army. Toward the end of July, Vahan, the Byzantine commander, sent Jabala and his light-armored Arab soldiers to check out the situation. But they ran into Khalid's Mobile Guard and got pushed back. After that skirmish, everything went quiet for a month. As for weapons, Muslim fighters wore helmets that looked like the Persian ones, and many wore chainmail to protect their faces and necks. They wore heavy sandals or Roman-style boots. Armor was made from hardened leather or metal chains. Infantry soldiers were usually more protected than cavalry. They carried big wooden shields, long spears and short swords. Archers had long bows that could shoot as far as 150 meters. Even though these archers were on foot, they were tough and could hold their ground. On the Byzantine side, they showed up a few days after the Muslims. Jabala's Ghassanid troops led the way, followed by the rest of the army, which set up camp north of a place called Wadi Urqad. The Byzantines lined up across 13 kilometers, facing east. Their right side was near the Yarmouk River, close to where steep ravines started. The left was near the hills of Jabiya, but it wasn't as well protected. Vahan spread his troops across the entire area between the river and the road leading to Egypt. But doing this created big gaps in the line. Gregory commanded the right side, Quanatir had the left, and Derzhan led the center along with the Armenian forces under Vahan. Their heavy cavalry, the famous cataphracts, were behind the foot soldiers. Up front were Jabala's Christian Arab fighters, used as scouts and quick attackers. Muslim sources say Gregory's troops chained themselves together in groups of 10, so no one would run away. It was a way to show their bravery and also to block cavalry charges. But many historians now think they were using a Roman-style formation called testudo, where soldiers locked their shields together to protect against arrows. The Byzantine soldiers had serious gear too. Cavalry had long swords called spathions, wooden lances, and bows with 40 arrows. Heavy infantry had short swords and spears. They wore mail shirts, helmets with cloth neck protection, and leg armor. Lighter troops had smaller shields and carried bows and arrows across their backs. But not everything was going smoothly for the Byzantines. Khalid's plan made them gather all their forces in one place for a big final fight, something the Byzantines usually avoided. They preferred smaller battles. With so many troops together, keeping them fed and supplied was a mess. Damascus was the nearest major city, but it couldn't handle the load. Locals clashed with the army over food and supplies, especially since summer was ending, and there wasn't much grass left for animals. Vahan even got blamed for going against the emperor's orders by agreeing to a big battle. But with the Muslim army gathering strength, he didn't really have a choice. Inside the Byzantine command, things were tense. There were power struggles between leaders like Vahan, Trithurios, Jaragis, and Quanatir. Jabala, who knew the land well, was ignored. That turned out to be a big mistake. Arguments between different groups, Romans, Armenians, Arabs, and religious disagreements made everything worse. No one trusted each other, and that lack of teamwork would end up hurting them badly. And both armies were getting ready to fight. The Muslim army stood in 4 groups, and the Byzantine army did the same. Before the battle started, they tried to talk and find peace. The Byzantine emperor, Heraclius, told his general, Vahan, to try and avoid war if possible. So Vahan sent 2 men, Gregory and then Jabala, to talk with the Muslims. Even the famous Muslim general, Khalid ibn al-Walid, joined the talks. But they couldn't agree on anything, so war became the only option. At the same time, the Muslim leader Umar was busy handling other problems in Persia. He told his general, Khalid ibn Abi Jahl, to try talking before fighting too. Umar also sent 6,000 new soldiers to help Khalid. Some of these soldiers were close companions of the Prophet Muhammad, like Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, Abu Sufyan, Hind bint Utbah, Sa'id ibn Zayd, and Ammar ibn Yasir. They were all brave and had lots of battle experience. They arrived in small groups, which made it look like a never-ending flow of reinforcements. This made the Byzantines nervous, and so they decided to strike first. On the first day of battle, as the sun came up, things were strangely quiet. Then something unexpected happened. A Byzantine commander named George switched sides and joined the Muslims. He fought bravely and died fighting with them that same day. The battle began with one-on-one fights between soldiers, and the Muslims did very well, winning most of those matches. Vahan then sent a small group of his soldiers to test the strength of the Muslim army, but it didn't work. They couldn't break through, and by sunset the Byzantines had to pull back. The next morning, Vahan tried to launch a surprise attack while the Muslims were praying. But Khalid had been smart. He had guards watching through the night, so the Muslim army was ready. The center of the Muslim line held strong, but the sides were in trouble. On the right, Amr fought back using his cavalry. On the left, Yazid's troops were pushed back hard, and it looked like they might lose. But then something incredible happened. Muslim women, led by Hind, grabbed tent poles and stood in front of the retreating soldiers. They shouted and encouraged the men, refusing to let them run. Their bravery gave the soldiers new courage, and they turned around and went back into battle. Khalid quickly used his cavalry to strike the sides of the Byzantine army. On the right side, the Muslims were able to push forward again. But on the left, Yazid's troops still had a hard time. The Byzantine soldiers stayed in tight formation and slowly kept moving forward. By the end of the day, the Muslim left side had to fall back again. On the third day, Vahan came up with a new plan. He focused his attack on the Muslim right, which he thought was weaker. At first, it worked. The Muslims were pushed back again and ran toward the brave women who reminded them not to give up. Khalid then launched smart cavalry attacks on both sides and behind the Byzantine army. These surprise moves caused part of the Byzantine forces to panic and run away. Vahan didn't give up. On the fourth day, he attacked the Muslim right side again. The Muslims began to fall back, but Khalid's cavalry rushed in to help. Meanwhile, commanders Abu Ubaidah and Yazid attacked the Byzantines from the front to distract them. Khalid divided his cavalry into 3 groups and attacked from multiple directions. The Byzantines pulled back but fired many arrows as they did. A lot of Muslims were injured, and some even lost their eyesight. That day was later remembered as the Day of Lost Eyes. One of the bravest fighters that day was Ikrimah bin Abi Jahl. He and 400 horsemen stayed behind to protect the rest of the army. Almost all of them were injured or killed, and Ikrimah died fighting. His courage made him a hero. After 4 days of non-stop fighting, Vahan asked for a pause to rest. But Khalid refused. He was ready to finish the battle. He gathered all 8,000 of his horsemen for one final attack. At the same time, he sent a small group to take control of a nearby bridge at Ain al-Dakar. If the Byzantines tried to escape, they would find their way blocked. The trap was nearly ready. At sunrise the next day, Khalid launched the final attack. His horsemen charged the battlefield, some hitting the Byzantine left from behind, others striking from the front. The left side of the Byzantine army collapsed. Then the Muslim cavalry went after the Byzantine horsemen before they had a chance to get into position. The entire Byzantine army began to retreat. Khalid's forces then attacked the center of the Byzantine army, striking from both the front and the back. The soldiers there also ran. But there was no escape. The Muslims had already taken the bridge, and the Byzantines were stuck between steep cliffs and the advancing Muslim army. Many were killed, and others fell into deep valleys while trying to flee. That was the end of the Battle of Yarmouk. It wasn't just a victory, it changed the course of history. A smaller Muslim army defeated a much larger empire with bravery, smart tactics, and strong faith. Khalid ibn al-Walid, known as the Sword of Allah, once again proved why he was one of the greatest generals of his time.